Good evening. Thanks for coming. My name is David Turner, and I'm the District 2 member of the Board of Supervisors. I've got a couple of housekeeping things. If you would, hold your questions to the end. I have a short slide presentation. It's going to probably answer quite a few of those questions. Can you hear better than me? Okay. But we'll open it up to questions after the end of this part of the presentation. So thanks for coming out. I know, by the way, I will come around with a microphone so that you'll be able to speak clearly, so that we don't have to repeat your questions for the rest of the crowd. All right.
Hey, David, should we do introduction?
Slide.
Yep, I know if you were gonna do it, or it'd be good for each of us.
All right, so I'm going to introduce the board. All of us are new except for Kurt. Kurt started in 2023, January of 2023. The rest of us started in January of 25. So Kurt Helmer's from District 1, and then I'm from District 2. Heather Knebel is from District 3. Margaret Dolan is from District 4, and Kurt Kupka from District 5. Right up front, the Tama County Supervisors are not raising the levies. The levies are what they were last go round. So our general basic is 3.5. That's the maximum it can be. General supplemental is 3.64617. And then the rural basic is 3.74618. Those things that are outside of the Board of Supervisors' control are your assessed value of property. And then so EMS that was voted by the voters and approved in November, 75 cents per 1,000 of assessed values. Your school boards, depends on where you live and what school board has raised for your current location. And then your city taxes. If you're living in the city, your cities have their taxes. So we can't control that. So what happened? Planned fiscal 24-25 budget projected an ending comprehensive fund balance of a negative $948,900. So when we start talking fiscal years, the counties run on a 1 July to 33 June. They've been up 33 June. So that's why we have a double number for the fiscal years. The previous board did not use GAAP as advised by the previous external auditor. GAAP stands for Generally Accepted Accounting Principles. Our treasurer notified us in January that we would not make payroll in 2 weeks. So what that did, well, first off, our payroll then primarily was all paid from the general basic fund. The Board of Supervisors allocates from the fund to departments, and once we do that, typically we can't draw that money back because we have elected officials in charge of departments, and an elected official, they don't have to do what we say. So just letting you know, once we allocate it, it's theirs to see to work with. The status at the time, we had a total of $14 million, but there was very little available in the general basic fund. So collectively, the Board of Supervisors spent hundreds of hours, some on our own time, and then also as a group, combing through our departments to find options to bolster the general fund. We engaged other counties, the State Department of Management, and legislators for options to fix the problem. So the immediate action that we took, we worked with our 911 board, and they gave us back $989,778.70. But it could not go to the general fund. It could only go back to the general supplemental. So the board then transferred $500,000 from the general supplemental to our general basic fund so we can make our payroll. That has to be paid back to the general supplemental fund by the end of June this year. We were able to do that. I also met with department heads to request them to restrain from any unnecessary spending. We implemented a hiring freeze. We de-appropriated funds from various departments. And then we met with all the departments individually for current and next year's budgets. Some of them we met up to 3 times. So what happened was they came before us told us what they needed. We went through the budgets with them and said, we'd like you to change this and this, come back and do that up to 3 times. They weren't being difficult, but we were being very judicious and asking them to do the same thing. So major cuts were made to both current and next year's budgets. And our chairman, that's Mark, he met with the State Department of Management several times down in Des Moines for consultation and advice. He also used to be a supervisor in Mahaska County, and so he knows an awful lot of different county supervisors. And so he solicited a lot of information from other counties. What he determined that was that the road department, the funding can be made up from 2 different sources to meet the requirements. And what that did was it freed up $203,000 in the general fund and $813,000 in the rural fund. And what this does is that aids us in being a positive $300,000 for the end of the fiscal year. So the end of June, after we pay back that $500,000, we're going to have about $300,000 in the. We have Heather Knebel is our vice chairwoman, and she and our auditor met with the Marshall County auditor and learned that our deputies that are patrolling in rural areas can be paid from the rural funds instead of general. We did this immediately. So they were cut over to the rural funds, and we're going to continue to do that for future years. Our general supplemental fund did not need to be, the levy did not have to be raised. Heather determined that. And then she went through the budget line by line, identified a bunch of cost savings, and then she led our open budget meeting to solidify those findings and with the whole board of supervisors. So just so you know, because of the open meeting rules, only 2 of us can meet together at a time without having an open meeting. So Heather took us by the horns, and then the rest of us met with her and found out what we can do to save money. So here's our findings. A line-by-line audit was necessary to find potential savings. We don't believe that this was consulted with other counties, state agencies for further options, and this was quite beneficial. We learned an awful lot of things that we can do legally to take care of our money. Moving forward, we're going to hold back 10% of the approved allocations to ensure that the cost controls are being enforced. So what that means, earlier I said, once we cut money over to a department head, particularly the elected officials, we can't pull it back. But we're not going to give them 100% of what they asked for and what we approved. We're going to hold back 10%. What that allows us to do is to make sure that we're not wasting money, and they'll have to come to us towards the end of the fiscal year and say, I really do need X number of dollars. We're going to start our budget process in October. So when we went to some of the IFAC meetings, some meetings with other state supervisors, we learned that quite a few of them are starting their budget process in October. It's a wise thing because it gives us a lot more time to work on the budget, work things out without having to jump through hoops to fix things. At the point where you get to ask questions, and we'll easier. Our board is very, very, very open. Yes, and I'm bringing the microphone to you, Laura.
From Geyser, questions of this tonight and Monday's meeting that for this current fiscal year till the end of the year or 26. I forgot.
Mainly for this fiscal year, but it also includes information moving into fiscal year.
Yeah, the actual hearing Monday is for next year. So it'll be, the July 1st through the following June 25-26 fiscal year. Yep.
Okay, it seems to me that FEMA County spent a lot of money. And the reason why I'm asking this question, I think they should have been put to a vote. We've got this big maintenance building out there at the county hall, built pretty good size, with a lot of money. What did that cost?
Clarify which building it is. The county shop.
New shop?
Did the FEMA County mark that?
Yeah, new shop. I believe it was right at,
Push and hold.
I'm loud enough anyway? I believe it was right around 3 million.
3 million? And it really is?
That was insurance. Yeah, a lot of it was insurance money from the derecho.
Okay, well, how much?
I don't have the papers or the numbers here, but, it's, we have a lot of equipment. I mean, it's,
I know you do.
but, like anything, you could always draw back on anything, you know, if you knew the situation or what's coming up, but, the total was right around 3 million.
I kind of think that the size of that building, we should have been went to a vote.
Yeah, I guess I don't know who was in charge of that. It wasn't a supervisor thing. I think it was our engineer. He was in charge of that at the time. And he's gone, so, but.
I guess I got another one here. We've had some. Sorry.
We'll come back and that'll come back to our general fund.
Nope, it stays in
Oh,
the engineer's fund.
oh, it stays in the engineer's fund, so I guess we can't get our hands on that.
All right.
I'll expand on your question for so the engineer, county engineer was budgeting for 200 hours of overtime per employee for rougher winters. And we asked him to cut back to 75 hours per employee for overtime. The average right now, since it's not a bad winter, has been about 40 hours. So that was a cost savings of just over $460,000. So that's one of the things that we've already implemented.
We need to increase our taxes.
What's that?
We need to get the taxes increased.
We're not increasing taxes.
Not increasing those.
No.
That was the first slide.
Well, it's like.
That was an important one.
I'd like to know, if you audit the books,
How often do you audit the books?
Audited every year.
You want to talk?
No,
do you audit them every year or every 6 months?
Every year.
Every year?
Yeah, every 6 months.
Maybe, I was gonna say, maybe you can do it every 6 months.
we do it for calendar year.
Yeah, fiscal and calendar year.
So you said that you're not raising taxes, but as a business for Warner's Raised Meat, there's some notice that you are raising taxes. So what is happening there? Are you, or aren't you?
We are not raising the levy. However, there was a tax that was voted on countywide, 75 cents per thousand, which was a tax increase to the public of about $900,000. So $889,000 total. Those voted on. We didn't vote on that. You did. The levy rates that were imposed on property tax owners that are within our control are not going up. The valuations, which are in the purview of the assessor's office, valuations always go up. We don't have any control of that. But our levy rates didn't go up.
And just to add, what comes out in the mail, it's not completely correct. The state requires that to be sent out. And my understanding is usually they say it's going to be a 10% assessed value increase, which is just a random estimate. So they force counties to do this. We have to pay postage to send it out, and it's not even accurate. It's usually, I think they're estimating around 2% is usually what most people assess value goes up, and it's not by person. It's just a general. So anytime you see the schools, the cities, the counties, we're all required to do it, and it's not accurate, which I know is frustrating because you see it and you're like, oh my gosh, my taxes are going up, and that's not accurate. So we're just trying to say from what we control, we spent hours and hours to save millions of dollars to not raise it. I mean, it's kind of a risk not knowing what the state legislation is going to do with the tax overhaul that's coming, but we'd rather just cut expenses versus have taxpayers bear the burden.
First, right? And then it becomes official once we send it to the state. So some of those numbers, like Heather was saying, those are guesstimates. Ours are going to be what I said, so I had on me.
Yeah, I think the actual, we were gonna raise rural,
Back up to that, David. That's right.
yeah, we were gonna raise rural services. We thought we needed to, but then what Mark had found, we think we can get by another year without it. So it is in there showing it was gonna be about $20 per 1,000, but we are not doing that because we believe we can do the cuts that we've already done and will continue to do throughout the year to not raise taxes.
20 for 100,000.
100, yes, 20 per 100,000, sorry. Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. One is, why are all of, the budgets being cut? And it's my understanding that there's still departments that are asking for wage increases. The other question is, does the old county shed really need to be torn down at this time? Or is it in such bad repair that it has to be? And don't we have the equipment within our county to take care of that ourselves without going for an outside bid?
Except as they're taking bids, everything's for paying, so we have to take it down.
Okay.
So what they ask.
Good questions. The first one, the cuts, why are we doing cuts? We were overspending by $4 million a year.
Doing cuts, but there's other departments that are still getting.
All the incongruency between the raises and between the cuts.
Yep.
That's a good question. So, the previous board of supervisors had voted to give pay raises 2% in, July 1st of this year. So, I think that's the way that it's been. Through the budgeting process. There's a certain amount of things that are out of your control. The things that are, there's, county contracts that go out with the, unions. Those are already implemented. Those raises can't be clawed back. If you raise the employees of, that are in unions and then you don't do regular employees, that causes controversy between the employees. So we saw what we could do. We looked at what the numbers were the raises. We looked at what the raises and decided we could find cost savings. Unnecessary expenses, it's still recognizing our employees. That's what the about the commission.
One thing before we go to that, we did, instead of doing the 2%, we did do 2%. So like, otherwise it'd be 4% throughout a year. We only did 2% for everybody else. So we did lower it by half of, in a sense, what they would get in a year for non-union employees.
And on that county shed, this Kurt Company District 5. County shed, we have to tear that down because that was an insurance claim. So in order for that to be all settled, it has to be demolished. That's the reason behind that. What was your other part of that?
So the insurance money is taken care of.
Actually, we tried to put it out for bid to see if anybody wanted to bid on it and tear it down themselves. We had a couple interests in it and they didn't like it or whatnot, didn't have anybody bid on it. So it'll probably be the county employees that end up tearing it down when they're free time.
And specify the bid was that they would pay us to tear it down.
And the bid was that they would pay us, say $1,000 if they wanted the building to tear it down and repurpose it or whatever it may be. It wasn't costing us any money.
I have a question for you. Have you ever thought of a penny option tax? Countywide, and then you can take care of your roads. Well, the roads
Penny
are
option.
junky, but, we never get washboards out or anything like that. Winter before last, they didn't move the snow back far enough, and we got that blizzard come in. They didn't backwing it, and I called my workplace and I said, I'm not coming in because they didn't plow these roads right. Got a little bit of wind, I said, we're gonna be blocked in. I went home on a Thursday night, went back to work Wednesday morning. Because the drifts were so bad out there at my place. If they backwing it, we'd have a big chance of going on through. They didn't do that. I know you probably got a new guy doing it. He's trying to do his best. You ever thought of a penny option tax? I wrote that down for the fire, for the EMS. So on deaf ears too.
Well, we're regulated by state law on what we can charge tax, how we can charge tax. There's already a local option sales tax that's broken down, and 50% goes to property tax relief, so it gets just deposited right into rural basic service. 35% goes directly to secondary roads, and 15% goes to any other necessity that's seen or deemed necessary for rural services. That's what the sheriff is previously. So there already is a local option sales tax, no penny tax. Only no, we can only raise the taxes that are specified by state code, and that would be the legislature's job to set that. We looked at raising the local option sales tax as a way to offset property tax. That was something that's being talked about in the legislature. They are doing some major tax reforms for property tax relief. I can't hardly hear you, sorry.
Do you guys know how many acres have come out of the Dana County tax roll over the last 10, 15 years?
I don't know. What, for conservation purposes or your
General's question. The settlement can buy ground, and then it comes out of our tax roll because it's not taxed.
okay.
What are we looking to? County somewhere.
Okay, good question. There's a under the Department of Interior, which is a federal program, they have a program called PILT. It stands for Payment in Lieu of Taxes. There's other counties in Iowa that get that. There's counties all over California. I mean, it's millions of dollars. It's so much per acre. And it's to recoup some of the monies that are spent providing services for those areas. And so I got in touch with our Congress lady, Ashley Henson, and talked with her office about it. I was directed to the Department of Interior's website. There's an application there that you can fill out. But you have to demonstrate a financial need that we're providing. So they pay for 911 services. They're the only other contracted entity besides the county that pays that. For ambulance services, they pay for fire protection. They have their own law enforcement. Their own road. They have their own infrastructure. We don't do any. They have their own DHS system for that sake. They have their own social workers. They have their own domestic abuse advocates. They have their own health clinic. So we can't demonstrate a financial need because they're already providing all these things. If we were to say that we were losing tax money because their land is not on our tax rolls, it would be an inaccuracy.
David. Standing right there.
The 75 cents for EMS, what's the plan there? What does that get us? Is it gonna be centrally located or we can go to a few ambulance centers? How's that gonna go?
So the previous board had set up an essential service advisory committee. And there are representatives, I think, from about every ambulance, fire, from all over the county, and they get together and they decide how that money is going to be spent. It has to be according to the Iowa code. The only way that you can have this tax is to be approved through the code, and it was put on the ballot, so that it was approved by voters. There's certain things that it can be used for and certain things it can't be used for. One of the questions that's in the legislature right now, I think that they're going to implement this, is that it could be used for salaries. That wasn't in the original language, but I think that they're fixing it. I want to call Dean now. Do you know about that?
No.
Okay. I know that that's in the legislature. It's passed through the first one, the next one, and, or was it? It's the last funnel, but I think that we'll make it through so that they can be clear that that can be used for salaries. But that committee is the one that determines how that.
Are we looking at any central ambulance locations or just leaving it out?
Saying no.
They're all gonna be, they're all gonna be their own service. I'm just saying, like, my Darwin, you know, we just. You know. It's like, okay, what if they're understaffed that particular day?
But I think that the goal was to free up some money so that we can have hired employees. And so those wouldn't be just relying on volunteer services. And so we're hopeful that that's going to bolster the services that we already have.
Just a lot of stuff. How they want. I'll say this, I don't want to be active. Also know when I call the sheriff, I want to come. When I call the fire department, I want them to come. And kudos to you guys for sticking your necks out here. That was the Grassley's meeting and people voiced a lot of opinions, mostly their personal agenda. But I appreciate all you guys. It's not easy. It's worse every day with social media, but I still believe it's just the way we can and make sure we have. Every experience I've ever had with Tama County has been excellent. I don't care if I walked into the treasurer, driver's license, what I had to do with the sheriff's department. All been good employees, and I want to keep those good employees. So if we cut it out, but we need to keep salaries moving ahead. Personally, for me, I'm okay with that. I don't want to lose people. You know, good, and professional, they're polite, and I think they do the best thing. So.
Thank you.
Okay, so I just wanted to say, I came here to protest the taxes going up. But now I see you guys aren't doing that, so I just wanted to say thank you. Because my taxes have almost doubled in the last couple of years, and I cannot afford that. So I actually came here to protest. So thank
Sorry we ruined it for you.
Thank you for the work that you put in.
Thank you.
For you to cut.
Thank you for recognizing that. One thing that we would just make a caveat, the schools in the city have a lot more, if you're in the city, have a lot more bearing on your taxes than the county would.
So my question is more about like thinking holistically about the. So if we think about every time we turn around and taxes are going up, it's honestly kind of a dying community. We do not have the businesses in town like we used to. It is not thriving like it was 20 or 30 years ago. So at what point the people that live here start to rebuild confidence in what is to come when we're constantly being charged more for this, for that? And granted, that's not just you guys, but like holistically, everyone that's saying, we want more money, we want more money. People are leaving the community to go to other places to work. People are not moving in, and there has to be a collaborative solution. So I'd like to know kind of like what conversations that you're having with other entities, other groups saying raise taxes when our community is dying anyways. If that makes sense.
It does. It's a complex question. Yes, I mean, you made several points. Could you just pick one or two for us to?
You know, like what collaborative efforts you're having with other groups to say, is enough too much for right now? And what are we going to gain from it?
So our goal and what our commitment was to try to come in and to reduce taxes. we found out that we had a budget shortfall of several $1 million. And our budget isn't that big. And so to cut that much money out of a budget, to not raise taxes was difficult. And so there's been some hard decisions that have been made. There's been people who have resigned as their positions aren't being filled back. There's going to be potential job loss. We don't want that. We want our community, and this is hard to find a job too, a good paying job. And so we want to be a good employer, but we also understand our fiduciary, that's a big word, responsibility to the taxpayer. And so we want to provide high level and good services without raising taxes. So we've cut literally millions of dollars, 4 million plus out of our budget to not raise taxes. As far as what collaborative efforts are being done with the cities, there's been some proposals, particularly one example is economic development. Right now, it's mostly funded by county taxpayers. Their total budget was $262,000, not me. And of that 212,000 was being funded through the county, through rural residents. And it was a $3 per capita for all of the incorporated areas within the county. Total population is just around 16,700. And so about 5,000 or 5,500 live in the rural area. So we were paying immensely more in the rural areas for economic development than what the cities are. And so we were trying to level the playing field there. And so we had a reaction where we had nothing by the end of June. So we fully funded them through the end of December 31st, but then starting January 1st and through June 30th of 2026, we cut back the funding to be the same as what the cities are paying, $3 per capita, which makes our contribution not 212,000, but 16,000. That was one of the major savings. However, we still need economic development, as you are saying. And so we want to, we've already sent a letter to withdraw from that entity. We would rather have something like a joint chamber of commerce where it's more driven than a 501c3 where people who have big businesses who can benefit from that they would make contributions and that would be tax exempt. And I think that would drive their revenue up and it'd be a different model. So those are some of the collaborations we've asked for. I don't know that that's going to happen, but that's what we've proposed.
And just kind of clarify that, that's the same about 38. Ouch. Yeah, ouch.
Okay, we have something here.
Yeah, I've got a little concern about the Squawkies, basically. I know that you're saying what they all do, they finance the ambulance and all that stuff, there's money that's, they think you pay also, but the big thing that I'm kind of concerned about is that when we have an election, they get to vote on some of our stuff, and we can't vote on their stuff. Now, I don't think that's right, because this is school elections, they're there, and we can't vote on their stuff. So I have a little problem with that. Can you give me an answer on that?
I'll try. Where do you live in the county or are you in the city?
No.
You live in the county? What's that?
He lives in the country.
In the country? What's your address? Not your address, but what's your city address? Toledo. Okay, I live in Toledo too. I don't get a vote in the city of Toledo.
No, I don't either.
I think it's just a jurisdictional issue. That's not laid out by the county. Those laws are written at the state level and at the federal level. There are sovereign within us. People who live in, I live in rural Toledo too, and I don't get a vote in the city of Toledo. I just think it's a recognition of that. Sovereignty. Let me further clarify. They have dual citizenship. The Meskwaki people have dual citizenship. They're citizens of the state and they're the citizens of their sovereign nation. Good deal.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to address the issue, young lady up there, a couple of us, actually, the previous question.
You talk about you.
Yeah, so I'm gonna talk into the same. You make a good point. One of the things that our taxes, the fact that we have, it seems like we have fewer and fewer businesses here. And the one thing that kind of drives me nuts is I know there are people who buy, like, for example, toilet paper and paper towels over the internet and have it delivered instead of going to one of the brick and mortar stores here in the area. And there's people who buy their groceries that way. It's just so much stuff. Just want to encourage people to get out and support the local merchants. Those, when you buy your groceries at Fairway, the lost taxes here, the salaries from here, Fairway's paying property taxes for Heidi or whatever. Gotta go back to the good old way of buying local more and more to support these merchants, and then that helps with the property tax base too. So I just want to get my soapbox in.
Go ahead.
Yeah, one.
Dean, don't take that.
You gotta hold it.
It's on.
Okay, Dean, don't lose that mic. I think I've got something here that probably everybody has thought about in the long run. How can we make it more equitable so that the people that are all paying property taxes, part of that goes to the people that don't own property that still live in the communities?
Sure. So you're saying part of that property tax money?
We all own properties.
Yeah.
We all pay property tax.
Yeah.
How about the renters?
They pay property taxes too, because the guy who owns their apartment or whatever is paying the property taxes. They're just paying it indirectly.
Okay.
That's true.
Makes sense.
The apartment owners not paying the property taxes for free. Added on those rent.
I don't want to use that, I'm Karen. No, not me. I want to, Dean, thank you for addressing the online shopping issue. It's huge. It's just getting growing by leaps and bounds. Thank you very much. So with the tariff situation that might come in with steel and tin, Canada. So if somebody still wanted that shop building because of insurance, it has to come down. Who would they see? Who would they seek out? If they decide, you know what, we probably should get that because we may not be able to get metal in the middle of the summer. Who would they talk to about that?
Good, man.
They could either get a hold of myself or Ben down at the engineer's office, or just call into the engineer's office and they can help you do that. That was a good question. I'd also thought about that. But yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Did you? You're good.
Okay.
I just want to go back to the economic development conversation a little bit. I don't disagree with making that tax base equitable across communities and the rural areas. But I think because economic development will benefit all of us. The projects that come into towns or communities because of economic development don't just benefit the people in those communities. We all go to restaurants, we all go to facilities, we all attend events that are funded through economic development. And I think that's very, very important. I want to push back a little bit about pushing that back to the local chamber of commerces, because those folks are all volunteers. They do that job out of the goodness of their heart to try and keep their communities vibrant, but it is hard. And if anyone's tried to look for and navigate the grant process that is used to fund these programs and developments and refurbishes and things that happen in our communities. It is astronomically difficult. And I know in my community of Traer, it would be extremely hard for my local chamber of commerce, and I'm active with the development corporation there. It would be extremely hard for us to take that job on as volunteers to do that. So I really, really want to stress the importance of our Tama County Economic Development Department and how much that actually brings back to our community. If they're finding those grants and finding those programs to help us develop businesses and buildings and refurbishments, then we all in the community have places to go, to attend, and things to do. And I really think very, very hard about how much you cut back in that area, because it will end up causing us all to suffer in one way or another, I do believe.
And I wouldn't argue with you. I actually agree with you. And we're not asking the local chamber of commerce to take that all on. We're looking at more of a countywide. That's what our proposal was, that you develop something countywide. And we're not even opposed to increasing our contribution, but it would be a countywide economic development approach instead of everybody doing their own thing. And I think that when we all pull together, we have ideas, we have the same problems that other neighbors have.
But do you not see our economic development group doing that now? I mean, you kind of make it sound like that's an entity that's not benefiting everyone in the county.
That's not the argument. And we think that they're doing great work. That's not the question. The question is that it would be equitably funded. We're asking rural taxpayers to pay $38 for something that incorporated taxpayers are only paying $3 for. And although we're all benefiting from it, we're disproportionately taxing rural residents for it.
Right. And that's where I started with my comment, that I want to make sure that we're not cutting as so much out of that department that we end up losing a good director and good services.
The proposal, I think and this is just a pilot, but this is what every other county does. The only county that's paying more for economic development that has it in our area, in Iowa anyway, the only county that's paying more for economic development is Scott County. They have 175,000 people. That's their population. We're under 17,000. And so we're paying out for economic development the same as a very large county. And so to everybody else's point, we want to lower taxes, but we want to have services. And so you kind of have to balance that out. And to have those services, we want our proposal, I think, would invest more. We would have more investment from businesses. You've got some pretty big businesses in Tama County that could write that off. Right now, if they give to our economic development, it's not scheduled under a 501c3, which is tax deductible. I give money to places because it's tax deductible, and I'd rather give it to a worthy cause than to give it to the government. And so if there's an incentive for people to invest in their economic development, something that they're directly getting a benefit from, I think that it carries a lot of merit. I'm not saying that it's going to be the be all end all, but we have to find a different way to, and I agree that we need to shop local. We need an effort. I think that economic development needs to do more to push the buy local. And as citizens, I think that it's incumbent upon us to try to do that. But it's really a losing fight because we're talking, that falls on deaf ears a lot. There's a lot of people that will shop. And a lot of times, if you're going on 30, you see a lot of Tama license plates going up to Des Moines or going over to Cedar Rapids or going up to Waterloo. And some of the services that we can. Everybody gets tired of Hardens and Subway, okay? We sometimes go up to Chipotle.
But I think we all also need to recognize that economic development in a smaller county is a lot more difficult than it is in the larger counties.
Yeah.
So we have to pull together and find those solutions. But I don't want us to lose an actual department for that. I don't disagree with bringing collaborative visions in, but
It's structured right now. This may just be, for your information, for the crowd's information. It's set up as a 20AD right now, so it's not a county department. It's its own entity. The only thing that would change is that you would have to apply for a tax exempt status. It is governed by the cities and right now. The benefit of doing it that way is just a tax advantage.
I agree with you, and on the city council in Toledo, Catherine has brought thousands to us. It's short-sighted to even consider getting rid of our economic development. Back to you, what can we do for our community to make it better? Have you volunteered? We have a wonderful theater in our community. How many of you are volunteering? How many of you are taking advantage of the wonderful programs we have there? There's a lot to do, but we need your help. Volunteerism is low. We all like to say, they need to do this. We can all do it, but your city council can't do it without you. How many of you are volunteering? Our food pantry needs help. We need volunteers at the theater. There's so many things. Get involved. Know your neighbors. See what they need. Volunteer to coach a little league team or a girls softball team, or even just carry the water down there. There are so many things, but we have to do that. I moved to Iowa in 1997. Things have changed in Iowa, and I've lived here for 15 years and owned religious properties. And yes, we do pay a lot of property tax. I can tell you that. So if we want to make our community better, we need to get our ducks, and we do need to make it better. Only we can do it. Nobody's going to drop from the sky.
So we have 99 counties in Iowa. How many of those 99 counties have
Where are you holding that mic to?
economic development departments? How many?
Say it again.
How many counties out of 99 have economic development departments?
14.
It was more than that. I have that. I can get it for you.
Is it half?
I don't think so.
Okay. The other question I have is you already mentioned not everybody's going to be replaced and people are going to be moved around as a cost savings on budget employee wages. You know where I'm going with this. What is the benefit package on top of the wage package for each employee in Tama County? No matter how much they make, what is their benefit package worth?
So hard to quantify, but just a good rule of thumb is to add 43% to a base wage. That's rule of thumb in budgeting pretty much across the private sector.
So approximately, what is each employee, what's their?
It depends on the job title. I mean, it's just like any business. You've got low-level employees and you've got high-level employees.
Is it 30,000 per employee?
Health insurance benefits, we set aside $30,000 for our self-insurance policy.
Okay, so you had said that for like an option tax or sales tax, we have to go through the state. How do we do that? How do we do that? How do we petition them? Can we do that?
Yeah, it goes through your legislator.
Looks like an option there.
Where do you live at?
Click here, outside of click here.
Big Dean Fisher behind you.
She's talking about raising the local option sales tax.
Yeah, how do I do that?
Might have to go through the legislature.
But like, how would I petition for that to happen?
Your call.
I will.
I see the levy's not going up. What about the assessed value? how often do they change the assessed value? And over the years, I've seen where price of farm ground in Tama County has doubled, and then it's gone down to half. And I think we're at a doubled right now, and we're gonna see it going down to half. So the assessed value, like I said, how often do they redo that? You know, the levy's gonna keep it even, but the assessed value has a big bearing.
Well, I think the assessed values just went out. If you.
I think they're going out tomorrow.
Oh, I got mine already. And it went out, and I think they do it yearly, don't they?
Yearly. But that's a
But this is,
state
I think
thing
this is a
too.
reassess value year. And I think they do.
It goes out yearly. There's a reassessment every year.
So that don't mean the taxes aren't going up.
No,
But you gotta.
what is in our control is not going up. Outside of our control. The assessed value is
Don't
going
have
up.
anything to do with the assessment.
No, we don't.
Who does?
The assessor.
That's not even,
It's
That's
not.
the state.
that's not even true, Mark.
The state requires him to.
Requires him
The state requires the assessments. It's the state that determines the formula that the assessor implements. But the assessor is a non-political office that's under the direction of the state. Go ahead.
Yeah, I tell you what, as far as, starting up a business around Tama Toledo area, I don't think that'd be very hard to even try to do because you've got so darn many, rules and regulations. If you were associated with a business, maybe and with that particular business, they would probably be grandfathered a lot of the, rules and regulations that's imposed. But if you were to be a startup business person, I think it'd be very, very tough. And especially now with the hard times that we have right now, as far as the economy, as far as farming goes, but I don't know. I know that, there's been many businesses, as I recall back, the days of Tama Toledo and the car dealerships, we had, the gamble store. And of course, right here in Toledo, we just lost Chimas. I mean, you know, we got something that's going backwards here. We're too high on everything and we can't afford to even get started. So there you go. But I don't know, you got a problem.
Yeah, unfortunately, the regulations for Tama and Toledo have to address with the city councils. We're in the rural area, and I don't disagree. I bought a building on the square in Toledo to try to open up a business. It cost me only $1,500 a month to try to start that business, and after a couple of years, it was a losing proposition. And I understand.
I'll give you a little bit more my 2 cents. Gary, you talked about benefit packages and those, you know, as an outsider looking in, or if you buy your own insurance, you know what it costs. So you're an old man like me, and I said, here, very expensive. But I worked at the correctional for about 7 years. And they don't pay any of them people enough. Believe me, not enough. I've walked pieces out of inmates' hair. I've watched their cells down, these 2 ladies here, they work. I've watched their cells down, I've dealt with violent inmates, at county jail. And my lieutenant tried to get choked out by juveniles from Des Moines on, grabbed the radio and almost got it down, almost killed her in the jail. My point being, yes, you have to have a benefits package. They Cadillac, it's in your form. But if you don't offer those things, it's not me you gotta worry about, it's a 25-year-old going, I ain't doing that. I'm not doing any of that. I don't wanna get hurt. I don't wanna deal with a guy that's off his meds, you know? And the other thing is they sit in that jail for 6 to 9 months. Because there's no, the state has to review them, has to have an evaluation. They're so backed up, they never go anywhere. So guess who babysits them? people like this guy. They just sit there. So you have to have something viable for new blood to come in and replace old people like me. You just, that's the reality of it. Like Leonard said, hard to get things going here. You're not fighting the hardware store in Toledo or Tampa versus the hardware store in Trader. You're fighting Amazon and Walmart online. That's what you're fighting. And you can go after them maybe for some revenue. I don't know. I don't know if that's even possible. But that's who you're fighting, not your local business. And it's very, very hard. You're absolutely right, Leonard. Kudos to anybody to keep their door open for a month. It's very difficult. And I'll throw one more thing out there on my soapbox. You talked about funding. Ashley Henson gave Meskwaki Nation over $900,000 to build a new jail. They don't have $900,000. I bet they did. But of course, they went after it because they could, and they got it. I did not want my tax money going to Meskwaki Nation for a jail. Yes, they no doubt need one, but they could have funded that themselves. So she got a black mark from me on that deal. No reason for it. That's not your guy. I understand. But I had to vent to somebody, so I guess it's you. And also, I would like H Avenue from E29 up to 2251. See if you can pay that actually.
Well, I'm at 2047 each, so I'm all.
I keep going.
I would just comment on the employee benefit package. It's one of the things that give us really good employees, and our employees stick around. They don't run away.
Important, very important.
To train an employee that would last 6 months, if you train somebody every 6 months, you can see about $15,000 walking out your door. And so the benefit package that keeps people here it pays for itself.
Hey, Carter. Just wait up there next mic.
As an employee that worked at the juvenile home for 29 and a half years, I have to agree that one of the reasons why I stuck it out for so many years, not only that I enjoyed working with troubled youth, but it was the benefit package that sustained my family. So I agree as far as maintaining employment, that's, it's not a Cadillac, then you're gonna get something that draws people in. The other thing that I would like to point out is I go to this and I love quite frequently, I have family members with grandchildren that live there. And the volunteer system that's in that city, and I have to say, I probably volunteer there more than I do in Toledo because I'm there frequently. But they have a recreation department that has a non-stop activities for the kids that's ran by the rec department that comes through economic development. They have a roller skating rink that is also maintained by the rec department that also gives young people jobs in the summertime. There has to be one adult there, but otherwise it's run by the adolescent. They had an incident where one of their parks was burnt by a juvenile, but within probably 2 months, a grant writer, and I have no idea who they are, but the equipment was replaced. They have 4 parks that has phenomenal places for people, for you to take your families to pickleball court last year. And they maintain festivals that are free for families. They have bouncy courthouse. They have bike rides that are free for the kids that are, it's very family oriented. And it does take volunteers to do it. So and like I said, I've been thinking about maybe finding out who exactly are the grant writers, because I think they must be pretty phenomenal. Absolutely.
It wasn't necessarily a question I could respond. A couple of things that have been identified as things that our communities would really need. One of them is recreation. Another one is housing. Housing is about recreation. Most of the people that work in Tama County, drive from Medina County to get
That means they take their paychecks back home and they spend more than they need. Housing has been identified as one of the very high issues as far as we need to address. Housing is number one. Number two, people want to move to a place where they can do stuff with their families. If you want to get young families, you have to do some recreational needs. Fortunately, we have a line approach. There are some things. I was at over the weekend, and there's place there's an organization that just organically come out.
Garwin and Richmond.
Yep, Carwin and Richmond Lake.
Doing a lot of wonderful things.
Yep, they were serving big goods and that kind of stuff, and pulled pork and that kind of to raise money. And what they do, they put up Christmas parties. A couple of the people that are living there, they said, we don't have our families here anymore. We'd like to get together. So they get together as a community and celebrate this kind of thing. So.
And we'll be having a 4th of July parade about 6 o'clock that day. So you got something.
I'm gonna kind of switch topics on you here.
Which way was here? Okay.
So in your slide, you said for the budget wise, that you're only gonna hold back 10% of the budget. If we're having budget issues, why not hold back 50% of it, reassess, in 6 months, from the year, and see where you need to put the money or adjust budgets at that way, versus waiting till the end of the year and have them have to come to you then. Because you could still give them 50% of the budget, come 6 months after July, give them, 30% more of it and just incrementally give it to them. And get back in there.
You want to take that?
Because I'm the one that finally got them to agree to 10%. So in some cases, that's not going to work because they have to have the money up front in order to continue. There's a gap because our taxes come in October. You pay them in September, they show up in October. I just paid my tax bill yesterday, and the county's not really going to see it until April the 1st. So we have that gap that we have to be able to cover. So that's one of the reasons why we want to make sure they have their money in order to cover the gap. Yeah, I'd love to have gone 30%, but no, in order for it to work, 10% is good enough. It's good enough for God, it's got to be good enough for county. So, I agree with you. I'd like to hold back all of it, but anyway.
And besides that, we're gonna be watching throughout the year, so there's different reports that can be pulled that shows what percent each department and each line item, what they've spent, right? So previously they'd approved the budget, and then my assumption is they just go on with their lives. We're gonna be watching that thing monthly. We're gonna be understanding who's not spending it, who is what we did working. I mean, we're coming in as a new board, and we want to make sure what we're doing is right and appropriate. So we're going to be watching it and putting in a lot of time. So.
I was just gonna add, some of those expenses are paid quarterly or once a year or two, so that makes a difference on how fast the budget's being spent as well.
Yeah, but every county department is different. The conservation, the public health, some of the bigger departments, particularly secondary roads, it's a little bit harder because they have different funding streams. They have different pots that money can come out of. But generally, most of the budgets are just payroll and insurance and those kind of things. And so if we're holding back 10% of that, it's going to get spent out. There's not a lot of discretionary spending as far as some of the other budgets.
So everyone has an idea what comes out of our taxes for our road. What's that dollar amount? It's 2.6.
Yeah, 2.6 million.
And the rest of this money comes from the
federal government.
Federal, state.
Total budget is about 9 to 10 million.
I guess I haven't heard anything about windmills. I don't know what's standing on that right now. Is it going for the standstill?
Depends on who you ask. So we put a moratorium on to try to, task the zoning board to come up with a updated, ordinance that would include the decommissioning process. Because if that's not addressed, that's a big liability for the county. The setbacks need to be updated and all those kind of things. And so they're going to address those through the zoning. However, we have, right now, a moratorium that's on until we have new ordinances, excuse me. The word wasn't coming to me, till we have a new ordinance.
So the windmills are coming, right?
Currently, we have put on a moratorium, so there are no windmills coming. And let me just speak. There's litigation. We're being sued by one of the companies that wants to put up windmills. And so we can't really go too far into your question.
There will be windmills maybe a year or two, or 3.
4 or 5 or 6.
Don't know.
Someplace. No comment.
How long we got?
Okay, so kind of on that subject there, why we have windmills that were already permitted, why did you put more moratorium on that stops them to get the litigation against them? When it was said that this moratorium would not stop ones that were already permitted. But it is, and that's what the litigation is against you, right?
The litigation was against us because the wind company came in and asked us to add language to the moratorium, and we refused to do that. So they're suing us. I think it was more of a.
But that language was to allow them, since they were already permitted, to continue.
Yeah, I mean, so the process is we don't know. We asked them questions. There was litigation. They sued us. We asked questions that we need answers to so we can address that and address that question. Does this moratorium apply to them? Depending on their answers, it might be yes and it might be no. That would be our opinion. But they didn't answer our questions.
Didn't answer them.
Their attorneys, the wind company's attorneys.
Would it not have been easier though to just put wording in your moratorium for the ones that were already in process and approved?
Even if the language was in there, they still had the same question. The same question would remain whether we put that language in or not.
Over here.
Gotcha.
I just wanted to mention that I came to this meeting to listen. And I knew it was going to be a very difficult meeting because when you're talking finances, you're talking budgets, it always gets pretty tough. I want to pass on 2 compliments. As I've sat here listening, I've truly been inspired. And I want to, number one, thank Board of Supervisors for due diligence. And if I've listened to you and I've seen how much homework you've had to do, I just want to pay you a compliment. So thank you for that. My second compliment was to the people that are here right now. I've listened to the interactions, listened to some ideas that were passed out about community health, economic development. I thought to myself, you know what? If we imitate the best of the best, we're going to do great. We want to let go of the worst of the worst. And I just wish I'd been taking notes because there were so many good ideas passed on that it just thought to myself, you know what? I can do better. I bet there's a few other people that might say this. Even things like supporting your community, you know, come on, that's not that hard to do. And so it just takes discipline. So I just wanted to thank everybody that's here and the ideas you passed out. I think the best is yet to come, so I want to thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you guys for coming. Good, Karen?
Hey, well, first off, we have a zoning meeting tomorrow night. If anybody is interested in coming to that, those are open to the public. And that is at 6 o'clock, and that will be at supervisor's room. And secondly, just pertaining to wind, solar, we're trying, I'm not sued, so I'm just gonna speak a little bit. We don't want eminent domain. We don't want to leave ourselves open for eminent domain. And when this is all said and done, these companies are not from here. They want connecting lines. They want to go clear across the county. They don't want just phase one. They want phase 1, 2, 3. Companies I'm talking about, eminent domain, the pipeline, solar, wind. So our county has to be able to afford all of that. So it isn't just what happened with phase 1 or what's going to happen with phase 2 and 3 and the pipeline. We have to think about everything in a great big package because it's a great big package deal. And then this stuff is so expensive. And with this wonderful new board that's trying really hard to budget and finance this county and not get into the trouble that we are at the federal level in the United States, we have to be very, very, very careful in this county, just what we say yes to. Because what happens today is going to affect, well, you already said it 5 years from now. And so I can speak because I'm not a lawsuit.
Appreciate it, Karen.
You're welcome.
I'm not a rural property owner, so I don't know how I feel about the witness. I do have a question though, tax dollars. How much money could our school and our county, end up with if we honored the agreement that was made with the one that was already permitted? How much money is the county going to be losing if we don't end up with that?
Yeah, so it kind of depends how it's structured. So we know that there's 20 turbines in the Tama County area of Gladbrook today. And so with those, the prior board had tiffed it, is what it's called. And so that means that the county took all the money they expected in the next like 20 years that they were going to bring in. And my understanding is they used it for the road. So from the Gladbrook Vienna turbines, the schools, the cities are getting nothing, so it depends how the current board of supervisors handle it, right? And then it's definitely the state legislation. I mean, they set how much subsidies of our taxpayer money is going into it. So that can always change as well. And where some counties have an ordinance, which we do as well for like tax valuation of wind turbines. So what that means is on a turbine, it starts out year 0, they pay no taxes, and it goes up to 30% by year 7. So like if they would be built, it'd be, a couple of years before we'd see 5%, then 10%. So it's not a quick fix either. And again, it can change based on legislation too. So that's the tricky part where, if the board hadn't come in here and made the cuts, like you can't just wait, for, we're going to get money in 2 years. And what if that money doesn't come? We're paying in on loans today with the Vienna wind farm. I think in 6 years, maybe we'll finally have it paid off. And I think they were built around 2011, 2012. So then we will be bringing in some money, which will be nice, but it spent years and we had to pay interest on that. So there's just a lot of, variabilities in this topic. It depends who's in office. So definitely a lot of things to weigh in on a topic like that.
So right now, we're actually paying on those TIFs. So we're paying that back right now and we're getting nothing out of it. So
Outside of with the TIF, I would just ask the question for everybody else. How much money are we getting from the Vienna wind energy in the county?
Like the actual energy?
How much are we getting
for
from
money
that
or
project?
for money? It'd be $500,000, I think. Is that what yeah.
It costs us $50,000. We're subsidizing it. We're getting no money.
Yeah.
At this time.
I want to add to that, we have weather events that we've never had before. We don't know how solar is going to hold up to these tailwind storms, but we do know we can look anywhere and see how these turbines are holding up to 140-mile-an-hour winds. They are not. So maybe in 6 or 7 years, we're going to get some money back. Are those turbines going to be standing there 5 years from now, or even at the end of this year? Weather has changed dramatically.
We've tried to look into like what happens if you reverse that ordinance. Can you bring in more money to where maybe on the Vienna wind farm, could we bring in more money? But you get a lot of answers talking to the state. Nobody will give a clear answer because nobody's reversed that ordinance before. So But yeah, I mean, the new board came in and like Mark said, we got to make sure the ordinances are followed. Our job is to protect the land, the people, and that's what we're going to do. If that's what we're elected to do, you know, all we're asking is questions, right? If people are honest and open, they're going to follow our ordinances, you know, and anything, not even wind. I mean, it's fine, but we're trying to make sure that questions are answered so we can do what's right for everyone. Even if someone has an easement for wind or they don't have an easement, we have to protect everybody and their rights, you know? So that's what we're looking to do. Back, go ahead. Oh, you got one? Okay.
I would just like to add to this conversation about wind turbines. When the salesman comes to the county and says, we estimate that the county will receive so much money, that is not a promise. That is not a promise. And with the Vienna wind turbine deal, what they delivered and what they estimated were two very different things. You turned it off.
Behind you, the other behind you.
We got you.
It's on.
Push the button.
So, my question's around like the Tama County property rate. When I looked it up, it said it ran a few years back was like 12.9%, and I don't know if that went up or down. Does the state do anything or provide any relief or any additional assistance for counties that are in extreme poverty rate or anything like that? Is there anything that they do to support the counties that are struggling? I don't know, I'm just asking the question.
She doesn't know. That's it. Be the mic.
I just say anything.
So there are certain things that are, I think the schools, receive a large amount of money if you have people who are, particularly with the food program and that kind of stuff for the poverty level. Lori, public health.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. There's certain programs, grants that are set up for people in rural areas that experience high levels of poverty. I think if you look at the totality of Tama County, we could probably agree that most of the poverty is in the southern part of the county as well. I think that the schools and those kind of things may have some offset, but not as far as county, not as far as what we do.
There's lots of programs starting off more than that in county specific. Medicaid, which the state pays for a large portion of that. So coming in and helping out, and just lots of them, and SNAP and all those other programs that are. I can't, top of my head, I can't make any specific programs, but lots of stuff going on. And also, we're looking at things that we've got to build this year. I really kind of appreciate obviously we have department state, which I don't know every year we can involve in kind of bill that would restrict that money. So 4 counties in the state would not get any of all the smaller counties. So those top 4 counties, they have, I think, 40% of the state's GDP. And so the other 60% is distributed to 95 counties. So by what constrained economic development options, states that are very well economically developed. Small counties. A lot of things here and there that we try out. And it's just that it's a tough nut to crack, but
I was just gonna say, if more wind generators are in your future or in Tama County's future, I would recommend contacting Marshall County and talking to them because of Vienna Township windmills that are on Marshall County side are considered, I believe, industrial. That means the assessment is set locally and not by the state. And that's like I believe the lateral back I was aware of 8% on that. So it would be a money maker there for I would think for things.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, thank you for that. And if they repower like Vienna just did, we didn't get any extra money. So, you know, the developer probably got subsidy money to do that. We're not getting any more money at the county, just the same as it always was. You know, how many years ago, it just never changes. It's when you first build, and then it just is that up to 30% max. So that'd be nice if we could just pay 30% of our property taxes, right? So something that'd be good for the state to help us out on.
And that's a good point. One of the things that was done here, when Vienna was probably, purchased and put into operation, was that the county supervisors would have had to adopt the state formula. We don't have to have that. We can repeal that formula for anybody coming in, that they would have to pay full tax, just on full assessed value on those. The reason why they do that is because they're not profitable on their own. They need subsidies. And so they, by year 7, they're only paying 30%. That's all that they'll ever pay. Not saying that there's not some economic benefit to landowners and to people who are building and that kind of stuff initially, but it doesn't necessarily benefit all taxpayers.
Just to follow up from last week with the Board of Health meeting, I know they gave you a revised budget, but it didn't meet all of your original cuts. Are you going to accept that budget that they sent, or did you ask them to try to lower it again? I missed that part of the conversation, or if you're coming back around. And will that nurse position be advertised to fill again, the one that was empty, or is that one that you're planning to leave vacant?
I think more to come on that. I mean, I guess from my personal point of view, I think they did a very good job. I think we worked well together and they made some hard cuts, but some good cuts. So I would say the open position will be an ongoing discussion that we'll have. But yeah, it was very good collaboration. We don't want to see home health care or public health obviously go away. We wouldn't like to cut any if we don't have to. So.
Thank you again for such a collaborative effort. It was amazing to see that level of respect between both sides that are in the last meeting. So thank you for working so well and looking at their numbers and being willing to work with them. It was very refreshing to be in that meeting. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, we got to work with department heads. It's not all on us. We're working with department heads. Hopefully they can make those decisions with us because it's definitely a team effort for sure.
Not closing.
Yeah, exactly.
We're not closing, yes.
The nurses that are going out and seeing people in our county are still going out. There's a horrific rumor going around that we're closing public health down, that we're kicking the nurses to the curb. That is not true. They are still employed. They're still going to go out and serve the people of our county.
Currently, there are a couple of openings that won't be filled in. Once we find out after June 1st, or excuse me, June 30th, what our real ending fund balance is going to be, we'll start having those discussions again. Because every nurse that doesn't go out, that's also revenue that we're cutting off. So we want to provide excellent services to the same level that we were before.
I was just gonna add too that we decided not to do any wage increases this next year because we wanted to keep the staff that we had. We did have one nurse that did resign and that position won't be filled, but it sounds maybe possible after July 1st, but we'll see how things go.
One of the things that, we took a little bit of heat for asking them to cut, and then digging into a little bit more of the schematics of how public health works. We are one of only 9 counties in the entire state with a hospital. And so I guess we probably have to do a lot to fill in the gap for not having a hospital and funding them at a very fraction of what it would cost taxpayers to put a hospital in. And so big proponents of good healthcare in particularly in our aging population.
Okay, get back to the aluminum again. I've talked to quite a few of these guys that are with the Lion Energy. They said that they are such high maintenance there's really no money to be made with them because a lot of the money goes just for their wages and the parts to keep the darn things going. And, I've talked to the power station up there in Martintown, where the guys work there, and they said that, that's just a joke. It's a government subsidized thing, and because it's such a good thing, well, maybe we ought to be buying them ourselves and generate power for ourselves. I mean, but this money or not the money, but the electricity goes out to some other place in California or some other place we don't get to even use it. So it's kind of a joke, really.
Yeah, I mean, if there was better subsidies or like benefits, I could put solar on my acreage and it would benefit me and it would be affordable or free, that'd be great, you know, like if all of us could just get a deal on putting a little solar panel that's not gonna bother your neighbors, you know, so I know it's a tricky conversation. Any other questions?
I would just like to ask a general question about law enforcement. Nobody brought that up tonight, but it's been asked different.
He's shaking his.
Different, who's back there? He's had so many chances. I told him it'd be great. Anyway, so can you just tell us a little bit, just kind of a summary of what's going on with law enforcement? Tama, Toledo, the towns and the sheriff's department, except that guy back
Like
there.
Casey do it.
I let Casey.
Yeah. The man's here.
Can I borrow your handcuffs?
That's even more fun.
What I have to put up with.
Do you want to specify your question? I mean, just law enforcement in general, how it's going?
Are there cuts yeah, exactly. You're the new guy on the block. How is it looking for the rest of this 4 months and then into 2026? Because they're working on that too.
You got 3 minutes, go.
What'd you say, Kurt?
He's got 3 minutes, go.
Obviously took over as sheriff on January 2nd. I had, 3 weeks to figure out where we've been in the last 5 years. I put together a budget, as I've explained to the board quite a few times on different occasions. He was one of them 3 times. The budget I presented for this year, well, I take that back. The budget that I presented for next year is what I call a needs budget. I looked at the past 5 years and everything that we need to have done and completed or have equipment for us to effectively do our job to serve the people of Tama County. So the budget that I presented was strictly a needs budget. And I made it very clear, especially to the board. I wish that I could go back knowing the budget issues that we have. I wish I could go back and take out, tens of thousands, if not more, dollars in wants to effectively do our job. Because the budget I presented was essentially I don't want to say bare bones, but it's a needs budget to get us to where we need to be and then work on that moving forward. I hope that answers your question.
I do say we have one of the best sheriffs in the state.
Yeah. Mhm.
We trust him with our lives, literally. Our mics are.
I just walked over here.
They're done.
I believe this has come up before, but just for people that don't always get to be at the Monday meetings. Did we finally get, all the state required raises up to par where it needs to be as far as the sheriff's, salary and other employee salaries? Because I know they were jumping increases a lot because we're so far behind. Finally get that, and is it still okay with our current budget?
So the contract was negotiated before we came in to office on January 2nd. Because they're in a union and that was already discussed. That was already Very expensive. Based on other counties. And there's a formula where we have to justify and show our work as far as where, is it enough for Casey? He's still here. And so, do we want to show our appreciation through, increases when we have the money? For sure. He's not near as far behind as he was, but I don't think that we're paying him as much as what he's paying.
Cool. I disagree. I did.
He's agreeing with everything you just said, Mark.
And obviously the sheriff budget, we let him manage a lot of that. It's a very important area. We're not gonna come in and just cut all these things. We need sheriff and deputies. He's got a new deputy coming in. We're not gonna, inflict hiring restrictions on essential services for sure like that, so.
Let me just make one more comment from our payroll. Yep. She said he's in. She said, we had increase his wages to be comparable to the state patrol, and they did that with.
So a question I have about kind of the sheriff, budget and whatnot, and it's something that I've heard around town a good bit as well. How does that budget work when it comes to getting the different new vehicles? We've seen quite a few new ones, the last handful of years. Is that truly a necessity, or can we make do with what we have? And then there's also the concern of maybe sitting and idling the King Tower quite a bit. Is there somewhere better for them to be posted, like more in town? Seeing as that is where those should be, but it says that the street is closed. I mean, how much traffic are we necessarily getting off that Highway 30 to justify someone sitting there?
This might, some phones are dying.
You want to sit?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for this year specifically, we have three squads that are nearing 130,000 miles. We have the old sheriff vehicle was 13 years old and had 130 some thousand miles with a rear main seal going out. And I think for those that know what that means, it's not good. What we have tried to do is, and what we're going to try to do in the future, is to try and recycle these vehicles as soon as we can before right around 100,000 miles, because that's when the powertrain warranty goes out. When we have transmissions go out, they'll start running up. The plan is to hopefully get newer vehicles sooner and have that cycle. But we also have to keep in mind that these deputies take these vehicles home. So when they take them home, it is essentially their office. And the way I look at it is everything is connected, right? When we talk about retention, when we talk about recruitment, we want to make sure that we are on par with all our competitors, other sheriff's offices, law enforcement agencies. So we want to make sure that part of my job is to make sure that the guys that are out there on the street during the day, during the night, they're in their offices during their whole entire shift. What I don't want to do is, for a believer, is you get what you pay for. I don't want to have equipment that is going to affect my employees because we have employees right now. I don't want to. So, while yes, we are getting newer vehicles, that is part of the need, especially in this next budget, is that we have vehicles that are, in my opinion, very overdue to be rotated out, so that way we can effectively do our job. And I might have missed part of that question, so if you refresh my memory on it.
Being part of it.
Oh, being parked. Are you sure it's a Tama County deputy? Is that a yea or nay?
He's gonna answer it.
So, everybody's required to. And I'm all for this, but when you go down there and you see all of our sheriff deputies' cars sitting outside idling, like you guys are inside having your lunch. Is it necessary? All the time. Oh, like, all these. Brought up to me, yeah. This conversation had, I understand there's gonna be, who pays for that gas? Who's the budgeting side on that? Is it necessary?
So that's gonna be through our budget with the gas while they're idling. Depending on what time of year it is, obviously if it's, you know, in the dead of winter, we're gonna keep them running. Keep them warm, not so much for each deputy, but also for the equipment. We do our best to not idle the vehicles, but I can tell you that we don't idle them nearly as much as common perception is. But I don't think that idling them for that amount of time is gonna cause that large of a, turning them off is gonna really affect our fuel consumption and our budget.
I think what, from this accident thing. So anyway, it was an accident done around the road. And, picked up the car. Just so happened that there was a boyfriend in the car, in the accident, and the farmer in the. When they landed, I did the farmer was pretty good shape, this truck was pretty good. Strong truck, you know, and he walked over to the lawyer and said, hey. And of course, the lawyer says, could you call the ambulance or something? So I well, I got a bottle of whiskey here. You know, so the lawyer, he said, you're starting to feel pretty good. I'll take another one. And so the lawyer says to the farmer, he says, I can't believe it. He says, no, I'm gonna wait for the truth.
I like that one.
Smart farmer.
He's not related to me, Casey, that guy.
I didn't get that from my wife's
Oh.
I just want to say thanks for everybody that came out tonight. I really didn't know how many people was gonna be here, but you guys have learned a lot. I just love it if you guys would share it with everybody to talk to and tell them that their taxes are not going up. Because of us.
Right. Because of us, there you go.
And I'll just make a comment too, not to hijack these supervisors, but, you know, just standing in the back, listening to everybody's, you know, concerns, it's very humbling to know that people actually do care. A lot of times we hear a lot, on social media. We hear a lot, especially as elected officials, a lot of negative things, a lot of comments, but it's very humbling to know that you all showed up, and thank you very much for showing up. And I'm a firm believer in that all of us elected officials, regardless of what department we run, regardless of how we operate the best of our ability for the people of Pima County, not because that's why we're elected, but because we also live here. And it comes down to me, what can I do for the sheriff to bring in new business and show new business they're going to be safe? New families coming in, auditor's office, everybody has a part to play in it, and I just, you all for coming out. And my door is always open. If there's any questions, I'm not afraid to stand in front and answer those hard questions and have those conversations. So thank you all for coming out.
Persons are not going away. Make sure you tell everybody that you spread that. The other thing is, when we decided to run, we said we were very transparent. Watch our meetings now online. You can see them after they're over because they are being posted online. So please.
On YouTube, yep.
Yourself of that. And when you start hearing rumors, I said this at the meeting, well, go look at it if you weren't there, so. Thank you. Thanks for coming. I'm very happy to see, by the way, the two people who stirred the pot that generated this, they didn't show up.
Yeah, just as the general comment, this is a great, yes, productive conversations. We learned a lot from you. Not only did you learn something from us, we learned a lot from you, and we like to have those suggestions. It isn't, we don't have to wait until we have to get all like in the same room. Come and see us, contact us individually. And phone calls. When I get, but I'll you see a lot of us, we take a lot of heat. Put it on social media, so if you want to take that, tag me on social media. Unsung heroes, you see our faces, we get a lot of praise sometimes for the things that we do. This guy here and that guy over there, spent so much time keeping us up to date and making the changes, and outside of their ordinary schedules, they have worked so many hours. We're so appreciative of Michelle and Karen.